Hey there, welcome back. In today's video I want to share with you an interesting story of myself playing back in 1997 against Peter Leko. Yes, the famous runner-up for the World Championship match. He only got defeated 7-7 against Vladimir Kramnik. Yeah, this is 2004. At least he would have reached a playoff match, but back then being 7-7 was Botvinnik style, and that was enough to keep the title. So Peter Leko was really pretty close from being the world champion. But back then in 1997, he was only a 17-year-old guy, a pretty sympathetic one, talkative, and yeah, pretty famous. That made my game preparation a little bit tougher. As you know, nowadays we see the blunders grandmasters do. Usually they blunder quite often, and we realize it thanks to the engine. Yeah, otherwise perhaps we wouldn't realize that they were committing such a horrible mistakes. Back then Peter Leko got such a big marketing. He became grandmaster at 14 years and 4 months, if I remember well. So he was someone who was, natural born world champion. So facing such a strong player, even as white, was quite challenging for me. Now, not meaning that I was weak. Back then I was something like 2470 something, 70 or 60, 2460. I'm a strong international master. But even though it was tough to digest all the information about this guy. Okay, we went to Szeged. Yeah, I was part of a team, a very interesting team from the region of Debrecen. Haduboszormeny is the name of the city, a small city. And yeah, we went there being the underdogs, the complete underdogs. We were facing Szeged, the Hungarian third largest city. And yeah, they got Peter Leko in first board, Andras Adorjan, and some international masters. So they were clear favorites against us. And okay, we get there to Szeged the night before. I got a horrible time sleeping. I was wondering what I was going to do against the Grunfeld. He was a renowned Grunfeld specialist, as his trainer was, Andras Adorjan. And he also played the Benko Gambit. And against those defenses, I had a horrible score back then. So it was a very difficult situation for me. So the next day, I guess I was fully in the right mindset, and we got to the playing hall. And I met him. We speak for a while. We commented on the recently finished tournament in Szeged. I was playing a Grandmaster tournament there. And a Grandmaster tournament won by Arthur Kogan, a good friend of mine. If I remember well, he scored his first Grandmaster norm. And okay, after chatting a bit, the round started. And the game I'm going to show to you is what we produced that day. So without further ado, let's jump into my game against Peter Leko. I played d4. He answered with knight f6, c4, and I saw on the board c5. So that meant he was going to play the Benko Gambit, d5 and b5. Yeah, this is a pretty interesting gambit that has a good reputation, and back then has got a better reputation even though. And now I accepted the gambit. In Capablanca style, he said, if your opponent offers you a pawn, accept it, and you'll find a good moment to return it. So he played a6 and b takes a6. Back then I had some experience playing weird moves like f3 or b6. But as I told you before, my score was horrible, so I decided to accept. B takes a6 and g6. Knight c3 and bishop takes a6. Yeah, in case of bishop g7, now a4. And in case of black recovering the pawn, this is a tempo for us. Bishop takes a6, knight f3, and short castle. So bishop takes a6 before seems to be very sensible. and was the mainstream variation back then. e4, bishop takes f1, king takes f1, so I lose the right of castle, but by playing g3 and king g2, I will be able to artificially castle, so my king is in no trouble. d6, knight f3, knight b7, g3, bishop g7, king g2, and short castle. Okay, we reached what is considered a crossroads. Nowadays, people place a4, but back then, we used to think that controlling g4 was a good idea, as otherwise knight g4, knight e5 was coming. So h3, queen a5. Yeah, there are other ways to complete black's development. For instance, rook a6 is a pretty interesting one, with the intention of bringing the queen to a8, putting pressure on the long diagonal and on a2 as well. For instance, rook a1, queen a8, and rook b8, or sometimes even e6, trying to use the rook on the f file with the help of the queen on the long diagonal is pretty interesting. But Peter Leko is a solid player. Now I know it. Back then I heard a lot of things, but I wasn't sure of his playing style. His defenses were pretty dynamic, but his overall style is pretty solid. So now I played rook e1, bringing the rook to the center, rook fb8, and here we are in the main position of the Benko Gambit. I have some difficulties developing the dark square bishop as b2 is attacked, so I decided to play rook e2, defending b2, and yeah, getting ready the bishop for f4, g5. So knight e8, yeah, this is a typical way to continue. Black increases the pressure over c3, b2, and the knight is coming to b5. This is a typical way to increase black's compensation, black's pressure. And yeah, the thing is that black has got such a solid pawn structure, only one island. Black's structure is pretty solid. And the pressure along the b and the a file is terrible. And if you add the bishop to the combination, yeah, you understand that black is having a very nice compensation for the pawn. Yeah, the knight on e8 is coming to c7 and to b5.
I'm sharing videos twice a week about chess improvement, chess ideas, openings, endings, every kind of chess related stuff. And if you are a chess improver, this material will definitely help you. So consider subscribing. That's the best way you can support the channel. Thank you.
To get rid of this defender. This is pretty well known, and I played rook c2. And after knight c7, I came to g5. Okay, to create some threats at least. Yeah, this is my first threat of the game. So this is a very tough maneuver. Rook e1, rook e2, rook c2. But sometimes you need to make some sort of prophylactics in order to bring your pieces to the game. Now black has to sidestep a few tricks. First of all, rook takes b2 is answered by rook takes b2, and bishop c3 is simply answered by bishop d2. Instead of the rook takes b2, black has several ways to play, but Leko decided to play king f8, a move that I found pretty passive, so I was really happy about it. The move that was really concerning for me was h6. Yes, inviting me to capture, and after bishop takes e7, now queen a6. And now the pawn is defended, and my bishop is trapped. Yeah, rook e8 is coming, and if I go away, g5 is coming. So in this way, I would have been forced to sacrifice a piece for 3 pawns. Yeah, the position would have been completely sharp and hard to assess. And yeah, that was something I wasn't too fond of. I wasn't too keen in getting to this position. Once I saw king f8, that was a complete relief, as I had a very normal move queen c1, protecting b2, c3, and creating a battery in order to play bishop h6 to trade this powerful bishop. So knight b5, that was Leko's reply to my move, and I traded knight takes b5. Here I missed an opportunity, and the opportunity was a4. I guess I wasn't too happy about knight d4, as knight takes d4, c takes d4, the knight gets c5, the pawn is advancing, and everything seems to be super dangerous for white, but we have the unexpected knight b5. Yeah, usually knight b5 is not working, as rook takes b5 is taking advantage of the pin pawn, but now h takes b5 ends with a checkmate on c8. That was the way to justify a4. And then knight takes c3, b takes c3 would have been a little bit better for white. Something like queen a6, rook a3, taking the rook out of the diagonal, preparing c4, knight e5, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, and c4 with a slight advantage. That would have been better, but I play knight takes b5, queen takes b5. Now b2 is hanging, but I have bishop h6 and queen d3. Well, all of a sudden I'm under some pressure again. e4 is hanging, the rook on c2 is hanging again, so I have to be very careful, and I played queen d2. Yeah, the idea is very simple. He captured on d2, but in case he captured on e4, then rook e1 is going to recover the pawn, the e pawn. Queen b4 perhaps, bishop takes g7, king takes g7, queen takes b4, rook takes b4, and rook takes e7. And yeah, we recover the pawn and we have activity. And yeah, I mean, extra pawn is still, or everything seems to be okay. So he decided to trade queens, and after bishop takes g7, king takes g7, knight takes d2, we reach a typical Benko Gambit ending. Yeah, the Benko Gambit is a positional pawn sacrifice. It's a positional gambit. So trading queens is not big deal for the Benko because they still have some pressure. Yeah, on the B, on the A. And for us, it's pretty difficult to advance the pawns without leaving weak squares. And they have f5 to try to weaken our e pawn. And in case we trade, the d pawn becomes weak. The game continues with knight e5. f5 would have been interesting as well, but he decided to play knight e5, b3, and rook a7. Now I have to play something like a3 or a4, can be good enough, but I played rook c3, defending d3. He came to b4. Yeah, I think rook b4 must have been avoided. And now I played knight c4. Yeah, trying to trade this powerful knight. Knight takes c4, b takes c4, and rook a4. Yeah, now my pawn is going to fall. I bring the king, and he brings his king as well. Yeah, it was a blunder to capture on c4, as the a pawn would have been really tough to catch. Rook takes c4, rook takes c4, rook takes c4, a4, rook b4, a5, rook b7, a6, and after rook a7, our king to the queen side easily, and we win the game. So instead, king f8 is a pretty natural move. There I played a3, asking him to capture, and he decided to do so. What actually seems to be a mistake. I mean, taking the rook to b2 would have blocked all my queen side, but he decided to capture, and in this way my a pawn is going to be a dangerous asset. Rook takes c4, rook takes c4, a4, king e8, a5, rook b4, a6. Yeah, if you have a passed pawn, please advance it. Yeah, rook b8. And now I was trying to bring the king to the queen side, but I didn't get him on time. I mean, king e3, king d7, king d3, king c7, and my king is not getting there on time. I mean, here. Yeah, I get to b5, but the pawn is lost. So I decided to undermine the pawn on c5 by playing e5. Yeah, it seems like a great idea. Yeah, I advanced to get this nice central square for the king and trying to weaken black's pawn chain. And Peter Leko played d takes e5, offering a draw. So, yeah, as far as I remember, we were on time pressure, and yeah, the offer came as a surprise for me. We were fighting in this equal ending. I was sure about the quality of the ending, but somehow I guess I felt it was a good result. So without thinking a lot, without going deep into my thoughts, I accepted. Yeah, I don't remember how much of a time pressure we had, but it turned out that d takes e5 was a blunder, and accepting the draw was a blunder as well. Okay, the move for Leko was king d7. That was the equalizing move. I'm going to explain it later. First, let's see why d takes e5 was a losing move. Well, I thought only about king e4, and c4 was good enough for a draw. Well, if I capture on e5, he plays c3, and the c pawn and the a pawn are going to disappear. c3 threatening rook b1, a7 for instance, rook a8, and rook c1, rook takes a7, rook takes c2. And in this kind of ending, I was still a little bit concerned that my d pawn could become a weakness. So that's why I accepted the draw. What I completely missed was the possibility of coming to e3. Rather than going to e4, by coming to e3, c4 is simply answered with king d2, and I come to pick the pawn, and there is no problem. My king is going to progress into the queen side. So king e3, king d7, king d3, king d6, for instance, a7, rook a8, and king c4 is winning. We're playing rook a6 and capturing. And yeah, the situation for black is really depressing. Yes, and now it's pretty difficult to make any move. I mean, something like f5 is answered by rook a6, king c7, king takes c5, king b7, and now king b5. This is it, and we're willing to trade rooks. Yeah, in the case of rook takes a7, rook takes a7, king takes a7, king c6, and the d pawn queens without any further problem. We're capturing this pawn and queening. So instead, against king b5, e4, something like e4, we can play rook e6. And again, this one is falling, and it's a tough thing to do now. Yeah, rook e8 is answered by d6, and black's position is a complete disaster, completely lost. So by playing king e3, I guess I would have taken the point home. Instead of playing king e4, it's completely ridiculous. But to a certain extent, I was satisfied by the outcome of the game. A draw was a good result. And it took me some time to understand that I had chances to win. Yeah, it took me some time. Yeah, I came back to Budapest, and there someone in the federation, I thought that he was trying to belittle me by asking me why I didn't beat Peter Leko. And I didn't understand. I thought it was a joke. But actually he was trying to tell me that I was winning in this final position. Yeah, d takes e5 is a blunder. Instead, if he had played king d7, bringing his king, the game would have ended in a draw. King e4, rook a8, a7, king c7, e takes d6, And now, very important, king takes d6. Yeah, instead, e takes d6, rook a6. And yeah, like it's into deep trouble. King b7, rook takes d6. And yeah, the king side is pretty exposed. And yeah, our king is getting to f6 easily. So king d7, king e4, rook a8, a7, king c7, e takes d6, king takes d6. And now rook a6, king c7, and it seems there is nothing better than trading this pawn for this one and ending in a draw. So it was a very interesting game with this takeaway. Don't accept draw when your opponent, as a higher rated player, as a more experienced player, offers you a draw out of the blue. Yeah, sometimes, most of the times when this happens, the thing is that they are in danger, they feel endangered. So don't accept, try to go deeper. Yeah, it's easier said than done, but okay, that's the takeaway of the game. Okay, I hope you like the game, and yeah, I want to see your comments on this interesting battle, so please feel free to leave me your best regards in the comment section. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Goodbye.